Okay, so in this tutorial, what I want to do is I want to build a custom figure using 3D scanned parts, 3D modeled parts, and kind of show you some different techniques for fitting these parts together virtually, doing some cutting, pinning, combining, and some sculpting, and show you a couple tips and tricks in Meshmixer sort of along the way. I think what I'm gonna try to do is, I've always liked doing the arm swap on the Tiki Barber Brian Westbrook pose to make a DB. We're gonna use sort of Charles Woodson as inspiration. So I've already brought in all the parts, most of the parts that I want to use. So, and then I brought in arms from our DB and action pose. For the scans, I like this. I think the scans work great for the larger parts like the upper body, lower body, the legs. Where the scans start to lose a little bit too much detail for me are in the hands, gloves. You lose a lot of shoe detail, and then in the head sculpt. It's just those are really small parts, so it's really hard to capture a lot of detail. So when I build poses, I like using a mixture of scan parts and 3D parts. So, all right. So in this case, what I've done is I already brought in most of the pieces here. Then after I bring in all the pieces, I do like to sort of rename them and sort of shorten up the names, which allows me to shorten up the object browser window. So I've already gone through shorten names except for this one. If you don't know how to rename things in here, you just double click and then highlight, and I'm going to call this shoe 2 because we're going to do a shoe swap later on. I hit enter. Now this is going to allow me to close up the object browser like so, because as these names get longer, it'll make this box wider, or it'll start to hide the eyeball column, which allows me to turn off different parts. If you don't know how to get this, it's under view and show object browser. There it is. Hide object browser, show object browser. This should automatically pop up anytime you have more than 2 objects in your plane here. All right, so I'm going to move this off to the side here. All right, one of the other thing I like to do before I sort of get started on any work, so this gizmo up here, which allows you to like flip through the different views. Right now, it's not really set to anything here. But this is sort of like the default view that I want if I'm looking to the front. So I got to find the front up here. So here's back, and then we're going to keep toggling around. And there's the front. This is what it thinks is the front view. It's not. So I'm going to select all the parts. I'm going to hit T for transform, or it pops up here. And now I'm going to turn this. Oh, it won't do these because they're invisible. All right, so I'm going to escape out. And then I'm going to turn these on because I do want those to rotate too with me. So now I'll reselect everything, T for transform, and I can also choose to turn on the grid if I want. Oh, see, here's the problem. Where's my grid? All right, what it thinks is sort of like the base is way down there, so we got to send it down there. This is going to make it so if we want to click through our views, it's just going to be a lot easier. So hit down there, hit enter. Okay, now if I hit front, there we go. That's good. Now we can just bring this up a little bit so that foot is actually resting on the plane there. Right there is good. At least now if I want to toggle between front, left, right, back, side, I'm going to get closer to the view that I actually want. So one thing to note, when you have all the items selected, all the items visible, it can slow down your experience in Meshmixer. So oftentimes I'll go ahead and just turn off parts that I'm not working with. I can hide these shoes for now because I'm gonna do a shoe swap, but I don't need them right now. And then because these arms weren't meant to go with this torso, I'm gonna show you how I would cut and key it to make it fit there. Now, in this case, Woodson is wearing shorter cut pants, no thigh pads, no knee pads. So I'll show you how, if you have no other sort of upper legs available, how would you shorten these pants and remove the pads? How to fit the head to this body, and then I'll show you how I combine head and helmet in Meshmixer. And then lastly, like I said, I'm gonna do a shoe swap. Okay, so to start, I think what we're gonna do is I'll go ahead and start by showing you how I sort of prepare some of these models for 3D printing. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna hide these arms. I'm gonna start with just the torso. Okay, so things I do to scan parts before I print, even if I'm not going to do anything, any sort of special cutting and keying, these are things I can do because I don't like these spaces that it leaves here where these knobs would go. Okay, especially this. You're never gonna take multiple scan pieces from an original part and actually get them to fit back together. So these knobs and these holes we don't need. Okay, so basically what I want to do is I want to flatten out this bottom here and flatten out all these places where, you know, those arms and nubs went into the torso. So the way I clean up this area first, I'm going to turn off the grid for a second because it's getting in my way. Okay. Start with the select tool. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circle like this just under the lip there. I'm going to go all the way around. Okay, once I go all the way around, I'm going to hit delete to delete the mesh from that selection. And now I'm sort of left with this inner shell piece. I'm going to double click on that. And that's going to remove that entire inside shell. Now I'm left with sort of this hole. So what you want to do is I'm going to shrink this down a little bit more. You want to double click as close to that edge as possible. And when you do that, you're going to see your selection. It's going to select all the triangles all the way around that opening. All right, so then I'm going to go up to edit and erase and fill. I'm just going to take a second. It's going to think. All right, and there it goes. This looks awful. What it does is it defaults to this smooth MVC. I don't know what MVC stands for, but it defaults to this type of fill, which is trying to do it as organically as possible. But it's a mess. So what I generally go with is flat minimal or flat remeshed. I'm going to go ahead and just do flat remeshed. And this looks much better. And then I'm going to hit accept and clear selection. And this is a much better surface when it comes to sort of supporting this model later. And then I'm going to sort of repeat that at the arms. Now, for these, what I'll do is take the select tool. I'll bump up the size of the brush, which you can do with the brackets. Right bracket larger, left bracket smaller. We're gonna go about that big. Make my selection, hit delete. And then so I'm gonna shrink that selection. Make that selection right around the edge, highlights everything, erase and fill. And I'm fine with the smooth MVC here. Well, no, I'll go flat. We'll flatten that. So we got some weirdness there. Okay, that looks good. Accept and clear. That looks nice. Do the same thing over here. And lastly, we'll finish off by doing the same thing at the neck. Okay, and once I've done this to all those different openings, this is how I always want my 3D parts to be if I'm going to. This makes it so much easier for hollowing and printing than leaving those giant weird gaps in there. So whenever I get around to doing one of these, I'm going to save this back and replace my original scan file. So with this part selected, I'm going to hit export and go and find the original, and there it is, the Brian Westbrook torso. I'll click on that so it retains the same name. I want this as a STL binary format. This is going to be a nice low file size. Then hit save, replace. Okay, done. All right, now if I ever want to use this torso again, any other project, it's sort of set up nice and clean the way I want to be able to work with it. Okay. So, let's start to jump through that. Let's I'll go ahead and we'll hit the head next. All right. So, here's the head I plan on using. This wood's in here. Now, somebody had asked me about when you go and add the helmet, some of these head models have hair that's too big and it starts to stick out through the helmet. How do you get rid of that? Well, this one doesn't have that, but it's got this big goatee, and it would be so we're going to go ahead and just remove this goatee because it would be the same process if we were trying to remove the hair. You want to go to sculpt, and we want to do shrink smooth. I'll increase the brush size, this bubble brush here. We'll go full strength. And I'm going to up the size of the brush. Remember, I can use the bracket keys to shrink or enlarge the brush. And just going to go ahead and run the shrink smooth over the goatee here because I'm going to need to add a chin strap at some point, and this is just going to get in the way. So just come around like so. Might have to change up the angle so you can see. Make sure you're going nice and uniform. And you do the same thing if you had a lot of hair on this figure that might be sticking out through the helmet. Yep, you're just using the shrink smooth. Good. Okay. All right, then hit escape to get out of there. So helmet, looks. You want to arrange the helmet. Make sure that I'll get the torso out of the way for a second here. You want to make sure the helmet looks good. You're making contact with the cheek pads here. Everything's lined up. Okay, see the ears through the ear hole. Okay, that one's sticking out a little bit, but really can't go too much wider on this helmet. Are going to start to lose contact here. Going to have too big of gap. So I'm going to say I'm okay with the ears like they are. I might have to maybe tip the helmet just a little bit. Just a hair. Bring it down just a little bit. Okay, we'll say that looks good. All right, and then once you have these two parts lined up, you want to combine them. It's as easy as this. So um, you can select either one first, but whichever one you select first. So if I'm going to select the head first, that means after I combine this, it's going to be called head. If I selected the helmet first and then the head and combined it, it would be named Air XP Medium STL. So I want this to be called head. So I'm going to select the head first, shift click, select the helmet, and then automatically pops up with different options I can do with 2 items selected. So I'm just going to choose combine. And that's it. It is now combined. It changed the color of the head. This is called a face group in Meshmixer, but it lets you know that when I select this, that this is sort of like 2 different objects. I can hit separate shells to make them 2 objects again if I ever wanted to go back. All right, so that's how you combine the head and helmet. Now let's make this fit with the torso, because it doesn't right now. So the first thing I do, sort of the same way I was sort of cleaning up the other parts, I want to remove this hole here. So I'll take the select tool and I'm just going to draw a complete circle. Now I hit W, I can see the mesh. This is it's very low mesh underneath, so I just want to make sure that I have a continuous ring when I go around. And I want sort of it to be sort of not too jagged, otherwise it can run into issues when it's trying to do the fill later. Okay, so I got a ring around, I hit delete. Now I want to delete this inner part, so I double click and that should highlight all that orange, hit delete, and then I'm going to hit W again. W is how you toggle on and off the wireframe. Then I double click with the select tool right around the edge, makes that ring across. I'm going to go edit, erase and fill, and this hit accept and clear selection. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to try to get this part as flat as I can, and I'm going to do that with a plane cut. So I'm going to go edit, plane cut, and it's going to cut the model along this grid line. Now I can use these tools to move that plane down to where I want to cut, or what I can do is sort of line it up and then drag my cursor and make a line where I want to cut. And it's going to move that plane for me. And then this gets it into a much closer starting point. Let's see. And then I can sort of move that plane. Oops. I'll try this. Oh, that might be a little bit better. Now, if you see this, now when you go to plane cut, it's going to default to cut and discard in half, meaning it's going to keep the model on one side of the plane and delete the other. This arrow points towards the side it's going to delete. So if I click on this arrow, it'll flip, and this means it's going to delete the bottom part of the neck, that is what I want. You also have the option of slicing and keeping both halves. We're going to do that later, but we're going to do discard half, hit accept. Now I've got a nice flat plane here, and it's also a face group, which is going to be important in our next step. So I'm going to add show the torso again, and you see we've got this big gap here between the neck and the body. We're going to fill that in. So I'm going to hit S for select, and I can double click, which is sort of like a select all, but it's going to select all of the face group that you are clicking on. So the only part I'm affecting is this bottom flat plane that we just created. And I can hit T for transform. And now I can move this flat part. See, I can pull it out and make a longer neck. I can even sort of turn and pull, come this way, and use this to sort of rebuild out that neck in the direction I want. So I'll turn back on the torso so we can see. I don't need much. I just need enough that I can make contact with the neck hole opening there. Okay, that should be enough. And I'm going to hit enter to accept those changes. I'm going to clear my selection. I'm going to turn off the torso here, and this is what I'm left with. Now, I want to clean this up a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I find it a little bit more difficult to clean things up when you have two separate face groups here. So I want to make the head and then this part here its own face group. So I'm going to double click the purple to select it all, and then double click the head to select all the brown. That leaves this one. Didn't select that, and that's okay. I want to keep this like that. Then I'm going to go to modify, and I can clear face group and it'll go gray just like the helmet. But in this case, I'm going to do create face group, so it makes it one uniform face group, still separate from the helmet. Then I'm going to go to my sculpt tool. I'm going to take my shrink smooth, going to up the size, and I'm just going to sort of clean this line. I just want to clean that edge. You know, a lot of it won't be seen, but... And I'm going a little bit faster than I normally would. Okay, so now the neck it's longer than it needs to be. Okay, and if I want to see exactly how far it's extending down into the head, I can click this magnifying glass, this magnet icon on the torso here, and it takes on this transparent view, and I can kind of see how much of the neck is going down into the torso. And, you know, it's not that much, but there is a little bit of neck that I don't need. I could use plane cut again to remove that, but it's not that much, so I'm gonna leave it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to I want to duplicate the head here, and I must have selected them in the wrong order, or I made a mistake earlier because I wanted this to be named head. So I'm just going to double click and rename that head again. All right, now I need this part, the shape of the neck, to cut out a hole in the torso. So to do that, I need to make a copy of the head. So I will, with the head selected, I can hit the duplicate icon down here. I'm just going to go ahead and hide the original. And then to do that, I start by selecting the part I want to cut into first, which is the torso, and then shift click on the head. So that's the part I want to use to cut. And then I want to choose Boolean difference. And it essentially uses that shape as a template cutter to cut out that space. So that's going to sort of leave a perfect imprint of that neck in that neck space. We got a little bit of nonsense going on here. This is because I had combined the helmet and the head first. What I probably should have done is waited till the end to combine the head to the helmet. It's all right. I'm going to hit accept. All right. this is this is part of the torso file now, and what we're looking at is the back side of a mesh. Whenever you see this pink, so we're gonna go to select and allow back faces, and then I'm gonna double click on this. I want to select this whole model, hit delete. Now it's gone. Okay. All right. So now I'm left with this space cut out in the torso, and if I turn back on the head, that just fits right in there. Now that is literally an exact fit, which means after you print, it's probably not going to fit, because the resin's not going to be that precise, so you probably still have to do some sanding. You could go in with your sculpt tool and kind of smooth this out and try to open it up a little bit so that it might fit in there a little bit better. Otherwise, just expect a little sanding to have to occur. And you could sort of do the same thing. Oops, turn that off. Same thing on the head. Might want to take again with the smooth brush and sort of, oh, that's too much strength. Bring that strength down a little bit. And see, just bring it in just a little bit so that you want the neck just a little bit smaller than the opening. And then maybe you'll get lucky and just get a better fit after you print. So bring the torso back. There, that sort of fits in there nice. And so that's how you would make sort of the head fit a body that it wasn't meant to go with. You would do sort of a similar process for making the arms fit in there. So let's take one of the arms. Okay. So again, we would kind of do sort of a similar exercise. I'm going to get rid of the torso. We're going to start with a nice flat piece to work with. So I want to plane cut the end. Yep, the arrow's pointing this way, so it's going to cut off this portion. Accept. I'll select that area. I'm going to turn the torso back on. Turn on transform and give that a pull. Maybe it should come up this way. And then maybe okay. Hit accept, clear selection. Let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. I'm going to double click on that green to select that face group, and this time I'm going to clear face group so it matches the gray here, and I can see this line here. I want to smooth that out. Maybe shrink this part down a little bit because I want that to go in. Get rid of the torso for a second. We really want this part to come in. See if we can get it to fit sort of in the existing armhole as much as possible. If I really want to move that in, I can do that with the move tool. I can even do that with the inflate tool. Inflate bubbles up, but if you hold down Command or on the Mac or Control on the PC and click, it uninflates. It kind of pushes it back in. It does some ugly stuff to the mesh here. So you come back with your brush, smooth that out. get rid of that pink. Okay. And what I can do is, I've got room over here, so I'll hit transform, and I'm going to bring the arm back a little bit. Now we're really utilizing that existing armhole. Okay, again, how far does that arm go into the torso? I'll click on this to kind of look. We got a lot extra here. So with this selected, I'm going to choose plane cut. And we're going to cut off that portion of the arm. Yep, looks good. Hit accept. And same thing, we want to use the shape of the arm to cut out a shape in the shoulder. Start by selecting the torso, the part that's going to get the cut, and then we use the arm to cut it out. So first, actually, we need to duplicate the arm, because we're going to lose it after the cut. Hide the original. So select the torso, the part that we want to get cut into, then shift click on the part we want to use to cut, Boolean difference. Now you can do things like unclick auto reduce result, and changing precise to max quality to get even a more accurate mesh does slow it down a little bit. I'm going to skip it in this case and just hit accept. And then same thing we sort of did on the neck. I can take my sculpt tool, use the shrink brush, and we're just going to smooth these edges a little bit. This is also enlarging the hole a little bit, so we don't have as tight a fit. Okay, and then hide that, turn on the arm, click on the arm, and then I can do the sort of the same thing with that smooth brush. Just kind of come around the edge and just smooth that out, shrink it a little bit as I smooth. Now the brush is acting a little bit more dramatic on this because the mesh isn't as dense as it is on the torso. Turn it back on. And there we go. So you would do the same thing on the left side, or excuse me, on the right side. What I'm going to show you next is how I would create a pin. We'll pin the neck, and then we'll repeat. We're going to pin the arm. So first thing I do is I'm going to select the head and hide it. Select the torso, and then I'm going to go up to Meshmix, and I'm going to add a cylinder. So I'm going to drag and drop it right here. Now what I essentially do when I pin like this is I'm creating pilot holes that I can drop my metal rods into to pin the parts. Now they're 3 millimeters wide. So for dimension, I'm going to change that to 3 millimeters and hit accept. That didn't work. Go into here, we'll change that to 3 and accept. Okay, and then I just want to move this to the center, so I'm going to pull it here. And I can take this green arrow and I can pull this up because I actually want this a little bit longer. There we go, because this needs to go, I want this to go into the torso and then up into the neck. Now I could choose to just do this in the neck and then leave this like so, and then when I go to hollow the model in your slicer program, I could add the drain hole right in the center too. But I'm going to go ahead and just show you this here. So drop a pin here. All right, and then what I want to do is right away I'm just going to duplicate it and then transform, and then going to move that one over. That'll be for the arm. All right, and then I'll double check to make sure this looks good for the head. So turn on the head, hide the torso. All right, that looks good. I can turn on transparent target here to see how far it goes up into the head. That's good enough. Okay. So before I do this, let's see, we're going to hide the head, bring back the torso. All right, before we do this, I do need 2 rods because I'm using these to cut out holes. So I need one for the neck and one for the head, and I want them in the exact same space so everything lines up later. I'm going to hide that one over there. So I'm going to take this one, I'm going to duplicate it and hide it. Okay, so first we cut out the hole in here. So I select the torso first, select the rod, Boolean difference. All right, that looks good. Now with these, I generally do uncheck auto reduce result and change this to max quality, because these mesh objects that you bring in, like the cylinders and such, they're very low poly. Sometimes you don't get as refined an opening. So I'll do that, auto reduce result, and change precise to max quality. And then hit accept. And so now I'm going to hide the torso, bring back the head, and wrong one. There's my duplicate. And now I can do the same, repeat the same process. Select the head, select this, Boolean difference. And again, you want to uncheck that, max quality. I'll just skip it for the sake of this video, hit accept. And see, you can see the hole closed up because I did not select max quality or uncheck reduce, auto reduce result. So this will happen if you don't do that. So I'm glad I skipped in this step so you can see why I do it. But it does adds a little bit of time to the process. From here, I would just hit undo and go back and fix it correctly. All right, and then you would repeat the same steps that we did for the neck. With same thing we would do for the arm here. So I'm going to hide the arm, and then we're going to line this up. And you can choose to make this as long or short as you want, depends on how far you want to go into the arm or into the body. Do one side first, and then when you think it looks good, go ahead and hide the torso and then bring the arm in. And then see how that looks on the arm, because this is where you may want to make some adjustments. With this being a smaller, thinner part, you want to make sure you're really in the center. So I probably want to go like this and then bring it down. Make sure you kind of view it from all angles. That looks good. The arm, and then just make sure it still looks good on here. And again, make a copy so you have 2, subtract, Boolean difference. Make sure you uncheck this. And hit OK. All right, and then you just repeat the same thing on the arm. So I'm not going to demonstrate that, but now you get an idea. So then you're left with 2 holes that are going to line perfectly aligned. Now you can use these as pilot holes, or you might even get it so that the rod just fits in there nice and snug, and you've got nice pins for your piece. All right, so Next we'll skip that. I'm gonna hide the arm, going to hide the torso and the head, and we're gonna combine the upper and the lower. So again, I want to clean all this up. I think we're going to just start with a plain cut. Cut this flat here. So edit, plain cut. I'll draw my line across here to get it in a nice starting point, and then we'll just kind of see how it looks. All right, good. And then I want to get rid of these. So hit S for select. Double click, and delete. There we go. And then fill. And accept. I'm going to do a little bit different over here. Select tools, make my brush real big. I'm just going to right across from there. Make sure I'm getting everything inside and outside. Delete. Double click around the edge. Erase and fill. Accept. Clear selection. Good, nice flat surface to work with. What I'm going to go ahead, I am going to see, maybe we should have filled this part out first. So this is where there was a belt. So how do I want to do that? What do I want to do? First things first, I think I'm going to raise this up a little bit. Double click on this face group, T for transform, and then pull that up a little bit. Hit accept. You can always plain cut that later again. All right, and then clear selection. All right, let's try to even this out here. I'm going to start with the sculpt tool. I'm going to start with the inflate brush. All right, and then switch to bubble smooth. And then shrink smooth. We don't want it to fold in on itself. We don't want that. Go back to bubble smooth. Go back to inflate. Change the size of the brush here. Okay, get it close. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the select brush, make a nice big selection in this area, delete, and then we'll erase and fill. And this time we are going to use the smooth MVC, which is a little bit more organic. Clear selection. This is a little bit better. I still want to bring this out like a little bit. So I'll take the inflate brush. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, but I'm going to bring down the strength. And then bubble smooth. There we go. That's not perfect, but it's better. And all right, let's bring the torso in. Okay. So right now this is not, exactly lined up the way we would want it. We want to get as close as it was on the original figure as possible. But I still want to keep things lined up right now. So we're going to move everything that goes with the lower because there's less parts. So I'm going to turn on the right leg, multi-select, and then transform them both. Let's see how close we can get these to fit. So that needs to come over a little bit. Maybe it's how it's rotated. Looks like we need to turn a little bit this way. Oh, too far. Oh, we are so close. So close. Whoa. Hey, that's pretty good. That's not too bad. I'm not seeing much of that lower part sticking through that upper mesh. I mean, that's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. Okay, I think what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to hide the torso. I'm going to start by smoothing this out a little bit because I want to shrink it a little bit. Because remember, we're going to use this to subtract from the torso. So I'm going to start by shrinking this a little bit. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's enough. Let's see if I turn on the torso. It doesn't look like it gets too close to the edges. I think for the purpose of this demonstration, this is going to be fine. You might want to continue to work with that shrink smooth and sort of hide that even more. So, all right. Got to duplicate the part we're going to use to cut. So, duplicate. All right, then hide the original. Turn on the torso. Okay, start with the part you're going to keep. Then you select, shift click on the part you're going to use to cut. Boolean difference. You can choose to uncheck auto reduce results and flip this to max quality just to get sort of the best cut, but I'm going to leave it for now and just hit accept. And that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Again, you can take the sculpt tool, take your shrink smooth, and smooth out around these insides, sort of bring it in just a little bit so that, this is going to be an even nicer fit. There we go. Those fit right inside of there. All right, so that's how you can get the torso to fit onto the legs nicely. Sort of just making your own key there. Okay, next. Somebody wanted to see how to get rid of socks. So even though Woodson has socks, go ahead and we'll pretend he doesn't. We're going to go ahead and remove these, and then I'll show you how to turn bare legs into socks. So I'm going to select this leg, and all we need to do is sort of smooth this out, get rid of these wrinkles. So like I said, the more objects you have turned on, slower Meshmixer can be. So whatever I don't need, I'm just going to turn off. And now I'm just going to focus on this part here. So I'm going to take the Shrink Smooth brush, and we're just going to go right over that and remove those wrinkles. And see, as I start to go over, taking away all that texture that's on there. And this is going to make it look like a nice smooth leg. Change the size of my brush as I come down here. I mean, this definitely beats sanding. Okay, that looks pretty good. And you know, unlike sanding a traditional McFarlane, like where you really have to sand deep and you sort of lose all that muscle definition, this doesn't look too bad. I think you could safely leave this. I don't think you have to go in and try to sculpt in any muscle definition into this leg. Now you might want to take this time to then, resave this leg out as a alternate leg with the, upper socks removed. So you have it for future reference. Okay, so now we have a leg without socks. May as well just cover, if this was a bare leg, how would you turn this into socks? And sort of the same way that you would turn, arms into sleeves. Now, Woodson's got more of like these tights on, so maybe those big wrinkles that we had really weren't conducive. So we're going to add our own. Make sure you check out my video on Meshmixer stencils, because that's what we're going to use here. And let's see, I got a few wrinkle brushes here. I think this is a sort of a more tight wrinkle. And let's see, the wrinkle, I actually have to flip this upside down so the wrinkle's going the correct way. Line that up. Now when you're working with stencils, Meshmixer tends to slow down a little bit. A bit bigger. And we'll see how that looks. Click here. Now it actually applied it twice, and that's because I had flow checked. So I'm going to Command Z to undo that. Uncheck flow. And now you'll see when I do a single click here that that stencil will not come in as heavy. Actually, I think I want to change the angle of that just a little bit. So I'm going to Command Z. Sort of reorientate the leg. And we're going to apply that one more time. You really don't get a preview of it, so okay, I like that better. And that looks good. I'm going to add one to the other side. It's a little bit easier to sort of move the object around when I'm not in that mode, so sometimes it's faster just to escape out of the sculpt mode, get it in position, and then apply. Oh, I got this going the wrong way. Should be up and down. And we'll apply. Yeah, that looks nice. Nice tight little wrinkle. This looks more like tights than sort of heavy socks. Let's see. I got a few more wrinkle brushes in here. We'll add another. This one's pretty heavy. I think this one is pretty light. It's kind of hard to see what it looks like, so I'm just going to click and we'll take a look. Yeah, that's not bad. That's a pretty rough one. So I'm going to maybe decrease the size a little, or the strength a little bit. I don't mind it being big, but I don't want it to be as pronounced. So we'll try one more time. Oh, I like that, but that's too subtle. So we're close, just a little up on the strength. And then try one more. Yeah, that's good. I think that's good. Just adds a little bit of texture, subtle wrinkle. We'll do one on this side too. We'll put one down here. That looks good. And we'll put one up here, but we're going to have it going the other way. So I'm going to flip the leg upside down. Actually, we'll have it right here. All right, so showed you sort of how, sometimes we get some of these. I'm just going to smooth that out. Sometimes the way the stencil sort of wraps around the shape, you're left with some weird artifacts. So that one is unintentional, so I'm going to smooth that out. Smooth that out. Okay, that's good. Okay, so now we just added some real subtle wrinkles. So now this looks more like a, like tights or a tighter sock. So now you've seen how to sort of remove sock or the sock texture wrinkles, and then how to go back and add them in. All right, with the sort of sock taken care of, let's go ahead and do a shoe swap. Let's turn everything back on here. All right, so like I said, I'm not a fan of either of these shoes. And so I already kind of went and found some shoes that I like. Again, I think these are off the Shotgun Quarterback. Sort of the reason why I picked them is because I did need a shoe that was sort of had this bent toe position. So I got two shoes here. So this one, it's not as bent, but I think this will work. And then this one is straight. Only one problem. The left is the left and the right is the right. Or the left is the right and the right is the left. They need to be flipped if I'm going to use these. So if you've never mirrored objects in Meshmixer, you're going to learn how to now, because I need this right shoe to become a left shoe. So I'm going to take this shoe and then I'm going to go edit and mirror. All right, what happened? Okay, well, it uses, it mirrors across the plane. My plane's way over here. And I don't understand why it lets you draw like it does for the plane cut, but it doesn't actually move the plane. It's very frustrating. So I just got to pull this over. And actually, there we go. I can. That's good enough. And see if you, sometimes if you don't see it on the other side of the plane, you may have to hit that arrow. But I could make adjustments. If I'm like trying to mirror something and line it up, I can play with these transform tools, but I just need it there. And I'll hit enter. All right, now it doesn't add a second object. This is all one object now. So if I hit transform, they both move. Not very helpful. I don't need this original anymore. So I can take the select tool, double click on this, should select it all, hit delete. Oh, it left me with a bunch of junk there. With the select tool still selected, I can just sort of draw a circle around this junk. Should select it all and then hit delete. Good. All right. Now we just have this one leg. Okay, so now we just kind of have to line it up with the existing foot. Okay. All right, that's pretty close, and this also gives me a good idea to see, is this the right size, or does this need to come down just a hair? And it really looks like this leg is maybe just a hair too big for the uppers. So I'm gonna just bring them down by a little bit. So I'm gonna select both because I'm using both shoes. I want to keep everything proportional. I'm gonna hit T for transform, and I'm just gonna bring this down just a little bit. Change that to 74. Just shrinks just a little bit, and I feel just maybe just a little bit better about that size. Okay. That looks good. And we're just going to select this one again. And go ahead and gonna hide the uppers. All right. And let's make sure we're lined. I want to make sure. Let's make sure we're lined up first. Right, that's pretty close to the original angle. What I'm going to do here, we're going to go ahead and hide the upper. Well, you can really see the difference in the shoe size, but I think this modeler tends to do shoes just a little bit bigger than they need to be. Okay, so I'm gonna hide that, and let's just chop off the leg here. So we'll do a plain cut. Draw a line across the sock line. See how close we can. Oops. Try that again. Okay. Maybe give myself a little extra leg so I can do a little bit more blending when I join them. Okay. The transparent part is above, which means it's what's going to get discarded. All right. Turn back on that upper leg. Okay, so we'll just make a few adjustments here. I mean, that's about where it should be. We'll hit accept. Then we're going to select this upper and we're going to plain cut below. So we'll go there. Make sure we're discarding what's below and hit accept. That looks, it's fine. You get the idea. I'd probably take a little bit more time with that normally. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little bit of refinement before I actually join these and clean things up. So I'll shrink smooth. Oop, maybe that's too much. Turn down the strength. Bring that in a little bit. I can turn up the strength here. We want to bring this down a little bit. Start to bring it closer to the other leg. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to, okay, this one we need to bring, I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. I'm going to shrink smooth it. Oh, see, it's a very low poly. So what I can actually do is I can increase the poly count with the refine brush. Okay, now go in with the shrink smooth. Yeah, now it doesn't collapse so hard. I can turn up the strength. All right, good. I'm going to select these two, and I'm going to do a Boolean union. And fingers crossed that this works all right. That worked. I know it worked because I have sort of like two separate face groups here. If this turned into a reddish color, that means there was an error in the union. All right, so I could, like I said, I could uncheck this and go to max quality, but this looks fine. I'm just gonna hit accept. Good. Okay, we do have an error here. Let's just go ahead and let Meshmixer fix that. Let's go to Analysis, Inspector. Ooh, it's got a couple of errors. Ooh, someone a lot in the shoes. I think those were there before we did anything. All right, let's auto repair all and see what happens. Done. Okay. In repairing that, it really smoothed out that area. There must have been some holes, issues in the mesh. Okay, with the Boolean union in place now, I did not want that gap there. I should have been a little bit more careful when I was, let's see. Oh, that's okay. I just don't, and see, I lost some of that texture of the sock above there. Let's see. Can I? All right. I want to shrink this area without affecting the sock. If I turn on filters, I can do restrict to group. That means wherever this red dot is, the center of my brush essentially, it's only going to affect that face group. So I'm not affecting the pink part, but I'm also not affecting the brown part down there either. All right, so let's got that brown face group, and I'm gonna clear it. Okay, now we're gonna sculpt again. Make sure that filter is still on. Yep. Yep, there we go. Sometimes mistakes are good because then I can show you how to get past them. Okay, so now we don't have that dent. I'm smoothing this out. I'm maintaining that edge, which is nice. Now, this is going to be a little bit... Okay, what can we do here? If I don't want to affect that sock. I'm going to take my select tool. And I'm going to draw right above the sock like this. Okay. Come around here. What I want to do is just paint on the leg. Oops, I accidentally hit T for transform. So Z to Apple Z to undo, or Command Z to undo. Okay, with that selection made, I'm going to go to Modify and Clear Face Group. All right, now everything above the sock is one face group, and then the sock is its own. So now I'm going to go back to Sculpt and Smooth. I can make this nice and big, and I can get right down to that sock edge, and I'm only affecting the leg and smoothing out the leg, and I'm not removing that texture that's down in the pink part. So where the parts were overlapping from the sort of the two legs that I combined, I'm smoothing that out. How are we looking? It's a little bulgy here. A little bulgy there. I could shrink this area down more. Going to make a big inflate. And I'm just going to hold down Command or Control and a couple clicks. Which is like does the opposite of inflate. Didn't really do that much. Was the strength not up? Oh, that's why. Do that again. Shrink it a little bit. There, that's not bad. And then go back to shrink smooth. I mean, just think this is what you'd be doing with epoxy sculpt and, you know, an X-Acto knife on a regular part. You're just doing those same techniques just now with brushes and meshes, and the nice thing is you've got an undo button if you make a mistake. Okay. So that's, I could go ahead and clean that up more, but you get the idea. I've now done a whole sock and shoe swap onto this leg. I don't like that this is smooth now and this is not. So I'd just be repeating what I did on the other leg. I would smooth all that texture out, smooth those wrinkles out, add back in my own. But at least you get to see how you go about sort of doing a swap like that and combining parts, some of the errors that you might run into, and how you clean them up. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. And so you just repeat the same steps, on the other side. All right, for the last part, I'm going to show how to add just a few accessories. So I think what we're going to do on this arm, we'll add a wristband, and on this arm, we're going to add an elbow wrap. So I'm going to hide the parts I don't need. All right, and we're going to add a little sweatband right here. Okay. What I'm going to do is, so the shape of a sweatband is closest to a cylinder. Trust me, this is going to make sense. And really, this is how a lot of 3D modelers do their modeling, is they start with these shapes like this, and they start with the shape that's closest to the end result and then work from there. So I'm going to take this cylinder and I'm going to put it about where the wristband would go. Close enough for what we're doing. I don't want it as wide, so I'm just going to take this screen and pull it in. There. And I can start to pull it in a little bit and just start to get it close now. Arms are tapered, so we actually need to make sure that it's sort of wider than the widest part. Okay, and hit OK. All right, now if I turn on my wire mesh by hitting W, you can see how sort of what they would call low poly, not a lot of triangles. It's really hard to put detail into something like this when it's like that. So I want to select, double click, and then edit and apply a remesh. And we're going to up this density. And that's as far as it lets me go. I'll hit accept and then run it again. Perfect. That's much more in line to the density we have on the arm itself. So that looks good. I'm gonna undo it. Now you can see how it's kind of you see the I don't know how you sort of almost like flat faces. I'm gonna while it's still this selection is still there, I'm gonna hit deform and smooth, and sort of that smooths out my shape there just a little bit. And if I wanted to increase that smoothness, I'd up the smoothing scale, but this looks fine. Gonna hit accept and then clear selection. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to get this to fit as close around the arm as possible. So to do that, we're going to use a new brush, and that is the attract brush. So we need to give the brush and this mesh something to be attracted to, and it's the arm, and that's why this magnet's here. So I click on it. Now in this case the transparent view is really obnoxious, so I'm going to go up to view and turn off transparent target. All right, then I select my mesh here. You can see this magnet's activated, so that's still there. Go to sculpt and then choose attract, and we're just going to we'll have to play with the strength. But as I brush over, it starts to pull the mesh towards the arm. And this allows me to get real close. So this is good for socks too. Okay, then I'll come back with well, shrink smooth, and we'll kind of this will help even it out. Probably come down in the strength a little bit. If I wanted to sort of expand and smooth, I'd want to use bubble smooth. So I switch a lot between bubble smooth and shrink smooth. Okay, go back to my attract brush. Turn it down, turn the laziness up a little bit. If you ever go, see, if I keep going, now it's flush. Remember, you can do the opposite of what a brush does by holding command. And, oh, that doesn't really work with this brush. Or at least not the way I was hoping. So I'm just going to command Z. Normally holding down command or control does the opposite of what the brush is supposed to do. Definitely acts a little bit funny with the attract brush. I was hoping it would sort of repel. And maybe it was kind of repelling, but no, definitely didn't look right. All right, so that's how you can get it, real close, sort of form-fitting. Maybe I'll go ahead and just sort of clean up this edge with a plane cut. And then come in with the smooth brush. I think I still have that filter on. Yeah, I do. So I'll turn that off. There we go. Round that out. All right. So that's how you would get your basic, your basic shape for a wristband. This would work for a bicep band too, but gets it nice and close to the skin, and then you would want to texture that, and that's where your stencil brushes come into place. So I've got a bunch of different fabric textures that I have. That's a skin texture, so let's use something like this: low strength, big size, and click. That's not enough. Up the strength. Click again. That's better. Maybe even a little bit more strength. Shrink the size a little bit. There we go. Rotate around and just keep applying. There. Now you got a sweatband. And at this point, what I might want to do, I got to turn off the magnet there. And just here, in this case, what I probably just do is hit combine. In case I ever want this arm again without the armband, I can always do separate shells. If I don't want to keep this permanently attached to there. And then go ahead on this left arm. We're gonna add the elbow wrap. Okay, so we have a slightly different shape because I want it to kind of take all of that shape there. So again, pull in our cylinder. And I'm going to do something a little bit different this time, I think. Just so we can show a different technique. So, I mean, it's basically the same technique, but I'm going to sell it as two. There. And then I'm going to duplicate that. We'll just add. We're going to do two. Good. Let's see. We need to remesh these. So I'll start with this one. Edit, remesh, crank it up. Good enough for this step. Select this one. Same thing. Double click, remesh. Okay. All right. Now I want to join these two. So I select them both, and we're going to do a Boolean union and error. A lot of times we get this with trying to join two low poly pieces. So cancel. And this is where sort of that error was happening. Sometimes you also got to play with how they cross and overlap. That can mess up the Boolean union. See, I'm glad we're doing this because we're troubleshooting. Because this happens a lot while you're learning, while you're messing around with it. You got to figure out why the heck. All right. So let's try one more time. Oh, that was even worse. All right. Let's see if increasing the mesh fixes it. Sometimes most common reasons are issues with the mesh. So remesh. Edit and remesh. And clear selection. All right. Let's see what happens. Oh, that was difference. Union. There we go. Got two face groups. That means it worked. Accept. Good. All right. let's select them all and deform and smooth. Look at this, it's already kind of even making like natural wrinkles. Up the smoothing scale, accept. Haha, look at that. Okay, clear selection. Let's make this one face group. So make sure you select both, clear face group. This arm needs to be our target. And we can go get our, oh, we gotta change this from surface to volume so we can get our sculpting brushes. So, oops, we want the attract brush. Up the strength. Too far there. Now we're getting a nice tight elbow wrap. Okay, well, we learned that the opposite of attract does not seem to be repel. I'll try it one more time. I'm gonna hit Command or Control if you're on a PC and click here, and yeah, it's definitely not repelling. So if you go too far, I generally just take the inflate brush and just inflate that mesh, and that pulls it back up. If you go too far with the attract brush, you know, it's nice thing. There's like nothing you can't undo, and in this hobby, I always wish I had an undo button. All right, let's smooth that out. Use bubble smooth. All right, so when, you know, go too far, so just use sort of inflate. Bring that up. And then maybe I'll come back with bubble smooth, give us sort of a better edge. I'm going really fast, and like I said, normally I take my time a little bit more, really refine this, but I just want you to sort of see the techniques, and you can take your time with it as you're doing this. Okay, that's good. I could, I could work on that edge a little bit more if I wanted to with the brushes. I could even just see if coming through with, you know, a plain cut, um, cleans up that edge a little bit more. We'll give that. Yeah, see, that's not bad. Plain cut both sides. Come back through with a smooth brush. You get a pretty decent edge there. Let's run it on the bottom. See, I like that. Shrink that down a little bit. Okay. Looks a little bit bulky, so you can still go in, do a little bit more refining. Let's go ahead and I'll add a wrinkle to it. Let's see. Where's the elbow? Okay, elbow's right about there. Put a nice big, we'll go heavier with that. I'm gonna turn on the flow. Let's get a real thick wrinkle there. Oh, I like, and then we'll do one on the other side. Nope, wrong angle. There. Maybe we'll bring down the size, bring down the strength. Put a more subtle one there. That was too subtle. here. There, that's pretty good. All these stencil brushes are on the drive, so play around with the different wrinkles and texture. But there's a basic elbow wrap. Like I said, you can take a little bit more time with that, clean that even more, get that a little tighter looking. Maybe you don't want wrinkles that big, bring down the strength. But so we sort of covered a lot of cool things in this video. You know, you should know now how to create different types of pins, how to make heads fit torsos that you're not used to, how to make arms, you know, fit into sockets where they should, how to clean up parts for 3D printing, adding accessories. Okay, yeah, this is separate, so I can, you know, combine this, and I can choose to, you know, remove it later if I don't want it. I guess the only thing we didn't cover is, I guess, removing pads, shortening pants. So I think we'll go ahead and do that next. All right, let's remove some leg pads, shorten up these pants. Again, just so Meshmixer moves faster, let's go ahead and start to hide things that we don't need. All right. You know, we can separate these. Let me show you how to separate these two parts. We already know how to plane cut. I'll run this across here. Now in this case, we do want this to be as close as possible, or as accurate as possible. We're going to be shortening the pants, so maybe it doesn't even matter. But okay, that looks good. So instead of discard half, we want to do slice and keep both. Okay. It still looks like it's the bottom that's going to get removed. Doesn't change how it looks, but just trust what it says there. Hit accept. And now it looks like nothing happened. I didn't get any extra parts. If I click on it, it's all there. But now you go to edit and separate shells, and we should just get one extra part here and here. Sometimes you will get dozens of extra shells, just kind of just junk in the model. So you'll kind of have to kind of go through and you can just delete out, you know, unnecessary shells. But now we've got the two separate parts here. Turn that off. Look, just like that. Okay. And now we want to go ahead and remove this knee pad. A couple different ways you could do this. I kind of used to just start with the smooth, shrink smooth, and sit there and try to smooth that away. That's a little slow. I actually find it's a little bit easier just to take the selection tool and draw around it. I want to keep this seam if I can, this pant seam. All right, and then just hit delete. Then we're going to erase and fill. So double click around the outline, erase and fill. Generally we want smooth MVC, but that's a bigger bulge than I want. That's what she said. Let me bring this down a bit. Let's see if I can flatten this out a little bit. Okay, that looks better. Not much, but better. We'll start from there. Hit accept. Clear the selection. You got some messes with the mesh going on. That's gonna should fix itself as we come through with the shrink smooth. See, we got some issues here. We don't want the mesh folding over itself. So we're going to make sure that that all gets fixed. Okay, make sure that this is coming down enough. You know, maybe the selection and erase and fill wasn't that much faster because I'm spending a lot of time still with the smooth brush, but that's looking pretty good. Like I said, we have the mesh is kind of like folding over itself. And you can kind of fix this by combination of the bubble smooth and shrink smooth. Okay, nice and smooth there. Maybe that area could be fixed a little bit. So we kind of do the same thing for the pad here. I might choose to attack something like this in sections. So let's kind of knock out the top of the pad here. Delete, and then erase and fill. And we're going to go with flat remesh, something simple. And then I think we'll just go ahead and this one we'll tackle with just using the shrink smooth at full. And if I don't like it, and then I think I'll just get it to a point. I'll get it down a little bit, nice and smooth, and then I'll come through with the selection brush and we'll do a delete and erase and fill. All right, and I'll turn on the selection brush. I know this looks tedious and painful, but I mean, if you've ever had to sand pads off a McFarlane figure, like, that is far worse. Like, we've got it so easy now. All right, erase and fill. Let's see how messy it is. That's ugly. Let's go flat remeshed. Okay, well, that's better. Let's see. Can we give it a little bulge? That's what she said. Oh, that's not moving. All right, well then we're just gonna hit accept. And then clear that selection, and then we're gonna use bubble smooth because we kind of need to inflate that area a little bit. So, not great looking. This was definitely not the cleanest removal. I think I'd actually want to go back in with the inflate brush a little bit. This needs to come out a little bit. Okay, that's better. I mean, we got a weird bulge going on here. This could probably inflate a little bit more. You get the idea though, and that's what this video is all about. Just sort of understanding how it's done, and then it's kind of up to you to take the time to do it and do it right. All right. So we want to shorten the pants now. We're going to shorten the pants about up to here. So we'll take the plane cut tool. And we're going to cut the pants. I'm going to adjust the plane so that the grid line this way is kind of going in the direction of the knee. Makes these adjustments a little bit easier. Okay, close enough for demonstration purposes. Make sure I'm deleting the bottom portion and then hit accept. Okay, so we got the bottom of our pant. Now we need to create more leg here. So there's a number of ways you could do this. You know, knowing what we know about, you know, pulling in meshes, I could pull, that's really big. Knowing what we know about meshes and sculpting, I don't know why that was way out there. You know, we could pull in something like a cylinder. And sort of build the rest, sculpt the rest of the leg using a mesh like this. So pull that out, pull that out. You know, it's probably easier if it's a little bit smaller than bigger. Okay, so this is like, oh, this is one way we could do it. In fact, I think we're gonna try this way because I haven't really done it this way, and I kind of want to. The other way that I've done it in the past is after making, because we have this flat plane here and it's a face group, I can double click it. In the same way we built the neck, I can hit T for transform and come up this way. You know what? This way might just be easier. And so I can come up. I can tilt it. You want to make sure the angles are right. Okay, make sure it's not skewing too hard one way. All right, and then hit enter. And then that face is still selected. You could hit T again and come back up. Now you can start to pull these and see it's getting wide. You can start to make it go wider here. You know what? This is probably the better way. I'm not going to come up much. I'm just coming up a little. We're going to do this in increments. Enter. Hit T again. We're just going to keep building, angling our way towards the upper leg. Does that look right? Kind of? Kind of. What I want to do is I want to select these faces on the side. And then clear the face group. All right, and then grab my sculpt tool, and we're going to use the bubble smooth. And we're gonna see how this looks kind of like once it's blended. Okay. Um, you kind of see what I was doing there. I was trying to sort of build up the knee a little bit more with the inflate brush. This definitely needs like a lot more work, a lot of more time spent sort of getting the shape right. But if we, if we zoom out now, where's that other leg? That actually doesn't look too bad. This area, the pant still needs some work to come down, so it's a little bit more form fitting to the leg here. Um, Man, that's not too bad. One way we could bring this down, just a little trick here. Hopefully, if you're watching, you already know what I'm gonna do. Let's see. I want a face here, so I'm gonna just cut a little off the top. Select this. Select transform. Bring this up. Where is the upper legs? Yeah. Hit OK. Now we'll make this lower leg the target, and then I can turn this one off. I want it out. And then if I take the attract brush, this should help start to bring, yeah, see? It brings it down. I had to extend the leg through the pant to do it. I mean, this kind of just looks like reverse inflate, but, and I'll come over here and we'll get this. This will help at least get the pant a little tighter to the leg there. And then we'll come through with shrink smooth. All right, it's a little bit better. It definitely needs more cleanup, but you get the idea. He kind of saw how to cut the pants shorter, how to extend the leg. I think you could definitely do a better job than this with a. I mean, that shape looks a little janky, but I think with a little bit of time spent, you could make that work. It's just sort of knowing the techniques. Again, it's always good to have, reference tools. I mean, it doesn't look that bad from afar, in proportion with the rest of the figure, but definitely needs a little bit more cleanup, a little bit more smoothing out. I lost some of that seam, but you get the idea. And again, that was sort of like the whole purpose, is to learn a few more techniques in Meshmixer and start to put them to use. So I think we're gonna cut it there. And if you stuck around this long in the video, thanks.